Let's move on though and talk about something I think Bear brought up. I also considered Donkey Kong as my dead Nintendo franchise, and that might not seem fair. We got Country Returns HD like 3 weeks ago, and Mario vs. Donkey Kong last year, but it still just feels like this is a franchise that deserves a little bit better than it's got. So we're going to talk about 20 years ago in February 2005. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat came out, and that's the European release date. It's close enough. Came out in March in
Okay.
North America, December 2004 in Japan. So we're kind of splitting the difference of all its anniversaries here and celebrating 20 years of Jungle Beat. And this just is one of the strangest, but also most special Nintendo games I think that they've ever made. This was the first game developed by Nintendo EAD Tokyo, which was established in 2003. And this was a new studio from Nintendo that was designed to bring in talent from Tokyo who had just graduated from university. Nintendo wanted to hire, but they didn't want to relocate the couple hundred miles over to Kyoto, where Nintendo had operated for the last 100+ years at that point. So they were striking out of their home, setting up a new base in Tokyo. Yoshiaki Koizumi, who had just directed Super Mario Sunshine, who still directs the 3D Mario games to this day. He worked on Odyssey. You've seen him wearing the Cappy hat in Nintendo Directs. He's often presenting the Nintendo Direct presentations. He was the director at this newly opened Tokyo studio who would go on to make Galaxy 1 and 2, 3D Land, 3D World. But their first game was Jungle Beat that used the Donkey Kong bongos that they made for
Mhm.
Donkey Konga with Namco. It's like the Taiko Drum Master game. Nintendo partners to make a rhythm game at home with the Donkey Kong Bongo Konga controllers. Miyamoto asks Koizumi, make a game with these, and they make a platformer. They make a 2D Donkey Kong Country like platformer that you control entirely by hitting these bongos and clapping, because there's a sensor that detects when you clap to do these different actions and get to the end of these levels. And it's just incredible how well it works, how strange it is, and that a studio that makes some of the best games in the world now with the 3D Mario series started out this way. And Perry, you and I were talking a little bit about Jungle Beat earlier this week. You saw this game at E3.
I did, and I distinctly remember when we first saw it, we're like, "Oh my god, Nintendo's gone crazy," because this was before Donkey Konga. These games hit before the Guitar Hero boom. There were lots of rhythm games in arcades. Like if you went to Japanese arcades, right? Like Konami had like Guitar Freak and games like that, and there was the Taiko Drum Master, all of these games, and so this was bringing that sort of experience home with these really bulky, stupid controllers with Donkey Konga. And an awful soundtrack mix on those games with lots of
Mhm.
unfortunate
There's some
choices,
really
but
weird
also some good stuff later,
Mhm.
obviously added in Nintendo Music. And then this game, we saw it and we're like, wait, are they doing Donkey Kong Country? And then the bongos come out, and we were completely shocked. We're like, who is going to buy this? Like, who
Mhm.
will buy these big bongos and play this game? And then we're like, well, it's Donkey Kong. People are hungry for it. And it looked spectacular. I think visually, this is what
Mhm.
I think this was what influenced Retro later to make the Donkey Kong Country games. Like, it looks like it, right? It's
100%.
almost
Yeah.
Mhm.
almost the template for it, the way it feels. That, by the way, that looks like Super Monkey Ball, doesn't it? That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it
no,
does.
and we were particularly taken by we hadn't seen like fur shading and like kind of fluffy grass like the way they did it on this system before, and we're like, man, this team is actually really good. And we started talking about like, what if that team made a Mario game,
Yeah.
they did.
And then they, of course, did. And yeah, you can see so much of Mario Galaxy specifically. Its DNA in Jungle Beat. There are bumblebees with with really fuzzy textures, just like the queen
Mhm.
bee in Super Mario Galaxy. There's these levels with jello that you're swimming through as Donkey Kong that just looks like something out of Galaxy 2. You can see that that's what they went on to make. And it's cool because Koizumi said essentially the only Donkey Kong elements they brought over were DK, the barrels, and the bananas. And everything
Yep.
else was brand new in this game. And that was to showcase the new style of this development studio that was trying to make a name for themselves in Tokyo. And then it totally looks like the rest of their game. So it's super cool that they pulled that off and established their identity with this game.
Yeah,
Perry, you mentioned who's going to
literally.
buy this thing. Nobody did. This was a
No,
commercial
no.
failure. Very few people bought Jungle Beat. But Jada, are you one of the few that bought Jungle Beat?
I did not buy Jungle Beat. My friend that house that we hung out with at during high school, he bought Jungle Beat and Donkey Konga 1 and 2. So we had a setup where
Nice.
me and my three friends, we were there on weekends playing Donkey Konga in the living room. I'm sure his parents were like, "Why don't these kids go out and do normal things?" But
Literally
we
anything else.
didn't do anything else but sit in our living room and
It's so
play
loud too.
Kongas. It was so
Yeah.
loud.
Toko, toko, toko,
Uh,
toko, toko.
but I think they had got used to it because their house was also like where we'd go. We take our DDR mats and we play DDR in their living room and such. And
Mhm.
so I played a great deal of Donkey Konga 1 and 2. I played a little bit of Jungle Beat just like during like downtime, like basically we'd play like card games sometimes, and I was terrible at Magic back in high school, so I hadn't played it yet. I was like I was learning, and I would lose and get eliminated in our little four-way matches. I was like, all right, well, I'll play Donkey Konga while I'm waiting for everybody else to finish. And so I'd play like a
Nice.
level or two here or there. But yeah, no, I really like this. How long were you able to play like before your hands got tired, Logan? Now,
You
like
had to take
Yeah.
going
breaks.
through.
Yeah, so I had Jungle Beat when I was a kid, and I remember my sister and I trading off taking turns playing it. And I was so young when I was playing this, I didn't fully appreciate everything that it was doing at the time. And so
Mhm.
we had gotten rid of our bongos, I didn't have them, and so I've been in just a huge Donkey Kong mood this year. From reviewing Country Returns HD, then I replayed Tropical Freeze. I played DK94 on Game Boy, which rules, by the way. That game's awesome too. And
Mhm.
so then I just really got the urge to revisit Jungle Beat. And so I went on eBay and I found a really nice deal on a set of bongos, Jungle Beat, and Donkey Konga 2. I bought it. It showed up and I played through the whole thing last weekend. And I don't know, I played for probably 2 hours straight and I had to stop. I was like, I can't keep going right now. It's too much work on the wrists. But just the ideas this game has, and to be very Nintendo in the way that it is really not hard to beat this game, but to unlock all the crests to basically get the highest rank on each level. It's like Tony Hawk. You need to get these aerial combos going. You got to wall jump and then clap in the air to grab a bunch of bananas, which boosts your combo meter. And then you can ground pound, backflip, do all this stuff to basically raise the multiplier on the score of these bananas that you're collecting. And that goes into your combo score, which is also your health against the boss of each stage. So you spend the entire stage working up this number. It starts at like 200 or something like that. And you're trying to get it as high as you can. And then you get to the boss. We're seeing here DK's fighting Dread Kong, and his health is at 468. And when he gets hit, that combo score you worked so hard for decreases. And whatever you get out of the boss fight with, that's your score for that stage. It's just super clever,
It's
really
really
makes you want
good.
to go back and learn what to do. And then they even have these little tip videos that they show after the level. If there's a high level technique you didn't pull off, they'll show you, hey, try this. And it's a video of Donkey Kong showing you something you can do if you try that stage again. Super smart stuff. It's just a really impressive game that just blew me away this time around, way more than I was expecting.
It felt
I
like an arcade game, didn't it? Like
Totally,
the
yeah.
way it's set up. I love rewatching this now. The elements that actually made it into later games. Obviously, first of all, the boss battles are very punch out like, right? With the
Mhm.
where you
Yes.
get out
Mhm.
of the way, just evolved to use a different control scheme. And then, yeah, it has the Mario Galaxy brought back this sort of spinning where you waggle your Wii remote to spin up on poles and things, and it
Yep.
has
Mhm.
the punching, which is obviously now in Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. You can play that when you get to the final barrel, or when you beat a boss, you can beat the crap out of them too by going tuk, 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 tuk on the controllers.
Yeah,
So
that's straight from this. Yeah.
it's really
Mhm.
cool to see some of those elements surviving. But like, this is such a crazy moment in Nintendo history where they had introduced a gimmick game, right? And Nintendo
Mhm.
has done tons of those over the years where they introduced a new controller or some sort of add-on or labo, to let you do something different with the controls, and it's usually really clever. But then those games get time boxed where you cannot play them later. They tried bringing this back with the waggle, right?
It's not the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's
The
just not
new
the
Play
same, and
Control
so
version on Wii is, yeah, and, like, you even use the control stick to move in that game, and it's like, that's
yep.
not what this game is about at all.
No, exactly. Um, but yeah, like I love that you brought this up because I have fond memories. I have this game somewhere in the house. I have 4 sets of bongos somewhere in a box, and I
Nice.
haven't broken this out in such a long time, but I gotta.
Yeah.
It's this game, I forgot about that whole element of building up your beat for your HP for the boss. It's been so long since I played, I forgot about that. That's one of those things in game development that I love because everything just synergizes so well and feeds into each other. They're like all the systems are symbiotic and they just play off one another. And that for me is when I see those elements, those threads connecting things in games, that's what makes it like a Jada game. Like those things are
Mm-hmm.
excellent design because everything feeds into each other. So everything feels worthwhile. Nothing's like, oh, I guess I can just collect bananas, whatever, for points. But no, this is actually has a tangible reason why you need to do good in this level and grab as many bananas as
Yeah.
possible. So like I love that.
It's
And
just
it's
watching the footage. It's so good.
It is. It's
Hmm.
awesome. And like, yeah, if you've never played this before, like it's really hard to put across how well it works when you have the Donkey Kong bongos in your lap. It just makes sense and it works. And you're pounding the right bongo to move Donkey Kong right, the left to left, you hit both to jump, and the faster you hit the drum, the faster he runs. And it's natural. I had my fiance try it out who had never played this before, and she got through the first level and beat the first boss and was like, that was awesome. And it just works and it makes sense. And it's so Nintendo and so cool. And this is a tricky comparison to make because a lot of people hate this series, but at times it's like a 3D Sonic game in the best way, where
Yeah.
you're going through this really fast section and you jump, and there is a clap indicator, or if you clap, you'll go up to a faster alternate route, and you miss it the first time, and so you're on this
Yep.
slower route with fewer bananas, and you just bookmark that in your head. Next time I play it, after you launch off this gap, clap. So you grab the thing and get launched up to the top shelf, and it's just so cool. And it's really tricky to 100%. You have to do extremely well on every level to see every bonus stage this game has to offer, but I think I'm going to do it because it's just so much fun and so rewarding.
I think you're exactly right. It is a very Sega game, right? Like it
Mhm.
does
Yeah.
feel more like the sort of Sega arcade games where they have these sort of these game systems that encourage you to do better and better in every level rather than just kind of speed running it. And it is much more like Monkey Ball and its ilk and Sonic in that way. Like there were a couple of gimmick games like that. Odama was one too,
Mm.
which was a
Mhm.
pinball RTS game basically with a giant ball, and like it was supposed to originally use the drums as well, and they kind of dropped that instead of use the microphone only to command your troops. Yeah, it's fun stuff, man.
I don't think that
I'm
was
glad
any
you brought
better.
this one back.
I
Yeah.
don't think the microphone for Adama was any better.
Odama was a mess. It's like it's
Mhm.
the I mean it's from the guy who made Seaman, right? And so
Mhm.
just like Seaman, it is borderline unplayable. But I still love it.
Mhm. And this is a random tidbit that I actually learned watching an old IGN Let's Play that Pear was on. And
No,
you said this is the first game that the ESRB ever rated E10 plus, which is just
I
a
did
random
not.
fun fact about it.
Man, I did not remember that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, but awesome game. This is one that it's like when I played Super Mario Party Jamboree, and I just still think that is just the best in that series. And a big reason why is the buddy mini games for the Jamboree buddies. And Donkey Kong's it's Donkey Konga. He's back. He's playing the
Mhm.
congas, and it's you play Donkey Konga for 3 minutes, and just such a cool nod to this. You sadly can't plug in your congas to the GameCube controller adapter. It doesn't work in Jamboree, but yeah, just such a cool nod to bring that back. And we've been talking about DK a lot because of Country Returns HD, but this is the last game that Nintendo EAD or EPD made. This is the last one. It's been NST making their Mario vs. Donkey Kongs. It was Retro making the Country Returns and Tropical Freeze. But Nintendo itself, internally in Japan, has not made a game for this guy in 20 years
Mm.
now. And it's just a bummer. It's because the last two times they did Jungle Beat and Donkey Kong 94, which is the Game Boy version of the arcade
Yep.
Donkey Kong with 100 levels that rules. They're two of my favorite Nintendo platformers ever. And
Mm.
Nintendo just hasn't returned to this guy. I don't know. Maybe now's the time with Retro working on Metroid again. But I just think that I want to see their next take on Donkey Kong
Mhm.
because the last time they did it, it was so cool and so clever and just awesome.